Appreciate you clicking on this review. I just got back from watching Twisters, and with Twisters we follow yet again another group of storm chasers determined to learn as much as possible about twisters. Unfortunately, that means having to get close to a lot of tornadoes, leading to some thrilling sequences. And that's all. Pretty much any spoilers, you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. I had not seen the original Twister that came out in 1996 when your boy was just 1 year old until yesterday, right before it was time for me to see the sequel. So I don't really have like the nostalgic attachment for the original movie, but although I did not watch it way back when, I cannot tell you how many movies, TV shows, cartoons I've seen over the years where they at least parody a scene from Twister in it. And you know, I say that, but I bet in editing it's going to be really hard to find any clips where they do parody this, but I swear I've seen so many shows and movies where they have a tornado and then a cow ends up flying by, just like in the original. Basically what I'm getting at though, it's obviously an impactful movie. It's one that a lot of people remember, especially if they saw it when they were young. They're like, whoa, this is what a Twister could do? And I think watching it back now, you have to remember the context about what the landscape of filmmaking was like. This was 1996. It was right after Jurassic Park. It was that transition point where CGI was looking rather convincing. And so you have this like really happy balance of just like amazing practical sets, real destruction happening with some slightly outdated tornadoes. I think they held up better than I was expecting for a movie of its time. And I think that's what helped make it stand out, where a lot of people could go back and watch the movie now and just be like, people found this amusing? And you know, I'll say that was kind of my fear going into Twisters, is the same mindset I had going into Top Gun Maverick. In a world now where we have really amazing CGI, can create blue people on a different planet, Pandora, a purple guy fighting a man in an Iron Man suit versus a guy with spider powers, I'm like, do audiences really just want to see another movie where people are running away from a tornado? Is that still appealing? Or in Top Gun Maverick's case, like, do people still care about just cool aviation sequences when there's so much other stuff? And, you know, Top Gun Maverick definitely proved me wrong. That movie was flat out amazing, super thrilling. And well, while I'm not gonna say Twisters is up to the level of what Top Gun Maverick was as a legacy sequel all these years later, I think it stands there pretty nicely next to the original. There's a lot I actually quite enjoyed from this movie, so let me get into the good and I'll get into the bad. Starting off here, the cast. You have an amazing group of talented stars. I'm sure that the one that's getting the most notoriety right now is Glen Powell, and for good reason. Very charming and fun dude. That's exactly what he is in the movie. But these other supporting characters were just as likable and fun to watch. Daisy Edgar Jones, who plays Kate, the main character, I thought was very easy to follow. You sympathize with her journey and tragic backstory and everything she's trying to do and trying to learn about these tornadoes. Anthony Ramos plays her friend Javi, who also has a similar interest in wanting to learn as much as he can about these tornadoes. And really all the crew members of Glen Powell's group. You know, Glen Powell plays Tyler Owens, this guy who runs a YouTube channel where he just gets millions of views off chasing tornadoes, throwing fireworks at them. Real typical over-the-top influencer stuff. But his crew, although have that annoying quality where every other word out of their mouth is, woo! Yeah! Woo! They brought a lot of laughs, and through the course of the movie, I found them to be extremely likable. Another big thing I thought helped catapult this movie into not just being a typical sequel is the fact that it's not so much a legacy sequel. I feel like this film pretty much stands on its own. If you're someone who's wondering, well, do I have to watch the original Twister to understand this one? I would say no. This movie takes kind of a subversive leap into not really connecting much for the original movie. Like, there's an Easter egg or two that'll be like, oh, I remember that from the first film, or hey, that's from the first movie. But a lot of that happens within like the first 5-10 minutes, and then the rest of the movie is just kind of its own thing. There's not a character in here that's like, oh, Bill Paxton was my father, and he died to a tornado when I was just a baby, so now I ride tornadoes for him. And that's something that always happens in these legacy sequels. A bunch of these characters are just randomly made the child of the star of the previous film. Kind of like the legacy sequel for Independence Day, where they killed Will Smith in between movies, but they had his son there as a pilot honoring him. No, I really dug that it was like, no, we're not just gonna randomly connect threads or family lines in here. These are just people that are very similar to the people of the first movie, but they have their own motives, their own character traits, and we're not going to rely heavily on nostalgia. And you know, I was mentioning, I feel like this movie is like right on par with the original, but one thing I felt this movie did much better that the previous movie was lacking is the emotional impact. One of my negatives I will elaborate further with in a sec is how many story points feel like are retreaded here from the last film, and I could easily see that turning off fans of the first movie when it feels like they got something extremely similar. But I feel like the thing that helps stands it apart is you care a lot more about these characters on screen and their motivations. So when these people are put in danger, there's a big tornado after them, one of them is about to die, or one of them does die, you actually feel bad and you want them to get out. You want them to survive. That's something I couldn't say I really felt in the original movie. Like, yeah, I felt bad once in a while, but I felt like this movie just did a better job of not only showing you character motivations, but just the way they would peel back the layers as the movie continues on. Because I was surprised they started the movie one way, where it's like, oh, this guy's the a-hole, this guy's a jerk, and then you get revealed some stuff, other motivations come out, and it feels like the script is flipped a little bit, and it's all just in service to kind of build these characters a little more. So yeah, before getting to my negatives, I really do think it's a solid, fun blockbuster. You got enjoyable, fun characters, destructive tornadoes all about, and when the moment comes for you to be worried about these people being in danger, you actually feel connected to the movie. So with that said though, let me talk about some things on why I feel like this is just on par with the original and doesn't do like the Top Gun Maverick of being an amazing legacy sequel. For one, it is what I was mentioning. There are a lot of story plot points, set pieces that are just repeated from the original. I've seen some people go as far as to say this movie's just a remake of the old movie. And honestly, I would not go as far as to say that, but there are a lot of things in here where you're like, oh, maybe it would have been better if I didn't watch the original Twister, because all of this would feel a lot more new to me. But you do have the thing where the main character is given a tragic tornado backstory at the beginning. It motivates them to study tornadoes. There's a scientific device that they're really trying to get on a tornado because it could help with some study. There's extra added in characters, different twists and turns they take along the way, but there's a checkbox of more things than one that's like, oh, that happened in the original. That happened in the original. That also happened in the original. And I feel just like retreading some of those things is going to hold some people back. Something that I feel is more of a personal nitpick on my part. Of course, we have advanced in filmmaking so much since the last movie. And by advanced, I just mean CGI has gotten bigger, or I just say more frequent. And that kind of tangibility with the destruction and things that happen with tornadoes. Like I think back to the scene in that original movie where they literally drive through a house. As unrealistic as that is, they still had a freaking house they built where a car actually went through it, and like all these huge set pieces mixed in with the slightly outdated CGI, I feel really hold that movie to be memorable when you're thinking about the destruction a tornado can cause. When it comes to this movie around, you don't get that many wonderful set pieces. It's all mainly just giant CGI tornadoes. I think there was an article where they said they did take footage from real tornadoes and implemented it into the film, and I'm assuming that's going to be the shots where from far away the tornadoes look great, but of course when it comes to destroying the town, attacking the car, putting the characters in danger, it just does become that just gray blob of CGI all over, and it just doesn't have that same impactful feeling. But that's where you caring about the characters and just letting your suspense of disbelief take over, where you're like, okay, I'm slightly believing this fake tornado is real. And you know, again, saying that out loud is probably a dumb thing to complain about, because I'm like, what do I expect them to throw an actor into a real tornado and be like, all right, hold on tight? But again, just referencing back to the original and how they had practical sets mixed in with the CGI and made it work, it would have been nice to see something similar like that here. But really, that's about it. The remainder of it will just be your enjoyment or your fascination with tornadoes. I always do get a kick out of these movies with how much I feel like I end up learning about tornadoes with the way they talk about them. I never knew there was such a mystery and people were still trying to figure out how tornadoes work. Is there a way we can stop them? And I feel like that aspect of the movie always just like locks me in. Whether the science they use in this movie is real or not, I believe it. And so seeing a couple of interesting characters just run away from them, I thought was a good time. So when it comes to Twisters, I'm gonna give action 3.5 stars. There are several moments of different tornadoes going after our main characters. Some are more thrilling than others. I do just feel this movie was lacking bigger set pieces that the original still managed to have. Comedy of the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I think there was a lot of really funny sequences that were well balanced. None of the humor ever felt like it overtook from some of the more serious elements or when it was getting dark. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I feel like it was a simple but effective story. I really liked most of the group of characters, but I found myself really invested into the main character, Kate. And when they started throwing in all this science talk about how they go after tornadoes, I actually found that fascinating, whether it's real or not. And horror in the movie, I'll give 1.5 star. I was kind of surprised sometimes by the violence or damage that a character would take after a tornado. A little bit more blood than I was expecting to see in here. And suspense in the movie, I'll give it 3 stars. Although I think it's pretty predictable on who will end up living or dying, because they actually get you to care about some of the characters on screen, you do feel pretty scared when some of them are put in a situation they might not get out of. Casual moviegoers, I'm gonna give this an A-. Classic summer popcorn blockbuster. Of course, they're gonna love it. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it a B+, and critically, I'm going to give it a B-. For Twisters, I think it's an enjoyable, solid enough fun time for you to enjoy it in theaters. Again, that's just my opinion on the movie, guys. I'd really love to hear from you. What did you love or dislike about this movie? Do you think more Legacy sequels should be like this one? Or what are things other Legacy sequels did that you felt that this one should have done? Really curious to hear from you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.